Hello everyone. Tonight we are sitting beside a table that should have been cleared a long time ago. The tea is cold, the biscuits are soft, and the fourth cup, the one with the little chip on the rim, has been sipped from. Not by you, not by anyone still breathing. You are here in a room that doesn't echo because sound doesn't quite trust this place. The wallpaper peels like curled tongues. The ceiling is bowed with secrets, and the kettle whistles though you never lit the fire. You probably won't survive, of course. Not because the ghost is violent, but because she's patient. Patient things always win. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You're seated cross-legged on a tatami mat that smells of lavender and mildew. There's a low table in front of you, its legs uneven, as if bowed by years of quiet apology. The room is candlelit, but not by you. You've only just arrived. The flame was already dancing when you pushed open the paper door, when you heard it whisper back into place behind you. There are 4 teacups. 3 are still steaming. 1 has already gone cold. The lacquer tray beneath them trembles faintly, not from an earthquake, but as if it remembers one. The old woman who invited you is nowhere in sight. She was here moments ago. Thin hands bent spine-eyes like soot-stained windows. She'd said, "Don't worry, she always comes for tea." You assume she meant a friend, a neighbor, a daughter maybe. But now with the old woman vanished and the 4th cup half empty, you're not so sure. In the corner of the room, there is a shrine, not grand, just intimate. Worn wooden shelves hold a black and white photograph of a girl in a school uniform. Her hair is tied with ribbon. Her face has been scratched out carefully with what looks like a blunt fingernail. Beside her photo, a folded letter. You don't open it. You won't, but you already know it's signed with the same name that hangs in the air like breath, Naoko. In early Jōmon period, Japan nearly 14,000 years ago, archaeologists found ceremonial hearths in circular homes lined with stone. Tea hadn't been introduced yet, it wouldn't arrive for millennia, but even then people made warm infusions of herbs, bark, and flowers. What they drank wasn't just for comfort, it was an offering, something for ancestors. Something to fill the empty mouth of death with warmth. Modern scholars still argue whether these offerings were meant to invite spirits in or keep them out. One theory says you pour to welcome them. Another says you pour to distract them. Either way, something drinks. The room shifts, not with movement, but with presence. You feel the candle flicker towards you, not away. The shadows lean in elbows on the table. You speak aloud, not a question, just your name. The air accepts it. That's all it does. You are not important here. You are just another cup. A sound comes from the hallway, like soft feet in socks on polished wood. You hear 3 steps, and then the sound stops. Not because she's gone, but because she's already watching. You ask yourself why you came here. You won't say it aloud, but it's the same reason anyone comes to a haunted house with teacups already poured. You're looking for an answer, and you're tired of polite ones. Behind you, a paper fan opens, but when you turn, it's only the candle flickering again. A joke, maybe, or a warning. You take the handle of the 3rd cup, the steaming one that hasn't been touched, and raise it to your lips. Jasmine and something unfamiliar, something almost metallic. You don't sip it, you just hold it there as if waiting for permission. There's a faint ring of condensation on the tray where the 4th cup sat moments ago. And a trail, just a little, like something wet and careful had leaned forward to sip. They say that in certain mountain villages in Japan during Obon, the spirits of the dead return to visit. Families leave out meals. They fold paper lanterns. They sweep the corners of the house in silence so that the departed can find their way more easily. In one forgotten village, name withheld, because everyone who writes it down forgets it. There's a practice of pouring tea for the dead every full moon regardless of the season. Not during Obon, not during any holiday, just once a month without fail. They say if you miss a month, someone else drinks for you. That's not the scariest part. The scariest part is that the cup's always empty whether you're there to see it or not. You reach for the folded letter beside the shrine, not to read it, just to touch it. The paper is damp with time. You hear laughter, but it's not coming from the hall. It's not coming from the house at all. It's coming from the cup you're holding. You set it down slowly. You think about leaving, but the paper door behind you is no longer a door. It's a wall, a painted one, a very old one. You touch it, it's dry, cold, solid, as if you've always been here, as if you're now part of the room, just another object waiting to be remembered. A teacup, perhaps, one that never gets poured. You wake the next morning still seated, knees sore, lips dry, cup untouched. Of course there's no candle, no fourth cup, no shrine in the corner, just an empty table and the faint smell of wet rice and smoke. You look behind you. The wall is still a wall, but now it has a pale square where a scroll once hung, or maybe still does. You can almost read the ink, but the symbols crawl apart the longer you stare. The old woman returns as if nothing's happened. She wears the same moss-colored kimono stitched in a pattern that seems random until you blink. Then it resembles a map. Then it doesn't. She brings you warm barley porridge and tells you you've had a very quiet night. "I heard you speak," she says cheerfully, "but you weren't speaking to me." You nod as if you remember. You don't, not fully. She begins dusting the table. She does not mention the fourth cup. In the Edo period, there were folktales about tea ceremonies so perfect they summoned the dead by mistake. One such tale speaks of a samurai whose daughter died just before her coming-of-age tea ritual. In grief, the family completed the ceremony without her, only to find the next morning that the tea had vanished, the biscuit bitten, and a wet footprint on the tatami. You glance at your socks. They're damp. Outside, the garden looks exactly how it should. Raked gravel, a few shy stones, a gnarled plum tree blooming out of season. The koi pond holds no fish, just black reflections and a single ripple that never reaches the edge. You think it might be raining, but the air is dry. The sound is in your ears, not the world. The old woman doesn't ask you to stay, but neither does she suggest you go. She's making pickles now, humming a song that follows you when you walk out of the room. You return 2 nights later, not because you were invited, but because you dreamt of steam rising from an empty cup and woke with the taste of jasmine on your tongue. This time the room is colder. The shrine is back, but the photograph is gone. In its place is the letter now unfolded blank. You are not alone. You feel it before the door shuts. A pressure like someone thinking about you too loudly, and then a polite cough. You turn. Nothing. But one of the cups is steaming. 3 cups. One for you, one for her, one for whoever forgot they were dead. You try to speak. Your voice sticks, so you whisper instead. "What do you want?" The steam rises in reply. You laugh, just a little, because you realize you sound like those old documentaries where the narrator asks animals philosophical questions. Why does the crab dance before the tide returns? Who built the first home and forgot to lock the door? But the ghost, if that's what this is, has better manners than you. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't answer. She just drinks slowly and waits. Some scholars argue that the rituals of hospitality in ancient Japan, especially tea, were never meant for the living at all. That the perfection, the silence, the impossible slowness was an act of ghostly politeness. Not for guests, but for observers. For those who might be watching from the corner of the room, if only they were still flesh enough to cast a shadow. You check the corners. No shadow. Just a slight indentation in the floor, like someone very light stood there for a very long time. The cup nearest you grows warm. You do not drink, but you do lift it, as a courtesy. This is how the second conversation begins, without words. Just heat, breath, and ritual. She tells you nothing, but you learn. You learn that the letter was never written in ink. You learn that some ghosts don't appear to be seen. They appear to see if you are real. You learn that tea cools faster when someone is listening. You learn not to ask why the door won't open when you try to leave, because it will open the moment you accept that you have to stay a little longer. And you learn eventually that Naoko is not the ghost. Naoko is the one who invited her in and forgot to close the invitation. There's a thin line on the ceiling above the table. A crack. It follows the grain of the wood, and if you stare long enough, it spells a word, or a name, or a question. Depends on the light. You ask the old woman once if the shrine belonged to her family. She chuckles. No, she says, this isn't my house. But you live here. Oh, I live, she nods. But not because I belong. Later, you wonder what she meant. Then you wonder whether you ever asked it at all. Because that evening, the shrine holds a new photo. A child you recognize, but cannot name. You visit again. Though the term visit is starting to feel inaccurate, there's a rhythm now, a schedule. The way moss knows when to bloom on stone, even without sunlight. You arrive with quieter steps, and the paper door no longer creaks when you slide it open. You think it's because you've learned to be gentle, but maybe it's because the house recognizes you now. The fourth cup is back. It's always the same chipped rim, the same delicate crack spidering toward the base like frost on a winter window. You touch it before anyone else does, just to confirm it's real. It always is. Right until the moment it's not. Tonight the candle is made of salt. It glows faintly blue. You lean close and catch the scent of the sea, though this house is nowhere near water. The old woman says nothing. She just serves the tea. One hand steady, one smile unreadable. Her shadow flickers too fast for the candle's movement, but you don't bring it up. It feels rude. She pours from a teapot carved from bone. It looks like ivory, but somehow older. She says it was her grandmother's grandmother's grandmother's. She says it was dug from a burial mound before anyone called them burial mounds. Back then they just thought the ground was moody, she adds, chuckling. Which, to be fair, it often is. You ask how long she's lived here. She replies, oh, not long. And then taps her chin thoughtfully as if trying to remember when she was born. She eventually gives up. Not all days are in the right order. The fourth cup steams before the others do. This time, the letter on the shrine is gone, and in its place is a single folded leaf. Oak yellowed. Unseasonal. You've begun to accept that things appear and vanish here with a logic not meant for you, like being in a language you never studied but somehow almost understand. A real ancient fact: in the Kofun period over 1,600 years ago, tombs shaped like keyholes were built for the elite, often aligned with celestial markers. Some of those tombs had underground chambers with trays and vessels, left behind still upright after centuries. Scholars debate whether these offerings were symbolic or literal. Some even found soot marks from candles that had no apparent source. The implication was simple and terrifying. Someone had been using the tomb after it was sealed. You now understand that not all locked rooms are unoccupied. The cup with the chipped rim shifts slightly, just enough to tap the tray. You blink. The candle does not flicker, but the flame leans towards you like it's listening. You murmur a name, not yours, not hers. A name you saw scratched on the underside of the tray days ago. You didn't mean to flip it over. You just dropped a spoon and curiosity did the rest. The moment you speak it aloud, the tea ripples. From nowhere, a bell rings. The old woman's face darkens, not with fear but disappointment. She leans forward and whispers, "We do not say that name." You nod ashamed, even though you don't know why. The fourth cup is empty now. Not emptied, not drunk from, just empty, like it never contained anything to begin with. Like it waited to be named and you failed. You stand to leave. But the door is not there tonight. In its place is a mirror, not a normal one. It shows a view of the room you are in, but no one sits at the table. You wave, nothing. You lean in close, and only then do you see the faintest outline, not of your face, but of someone behind you. Her head tilted, her expression unreadable. When you turn, of course, there is no one. But your tea is warmer than it was before. One of the jokes people used to tell in the village: how do you know the dead like jasmine tea? Answer: they never complain. Another: What's the fastest way to wake a ghost? Serve it too hot and act surprised when it breathes on it first. And the third whispered between children near the well. Why do ghosts come to tea? Because funerals don't serve anything sweet. They always laughed. Until someone asked the question with a straight face. You are not laughing now. The old woman finally speaks. If you'd like to stop, you can, but you'll still be poured for. You glance at the fourth cup. The chip has moved, slightly, not much, just enough to suggest time is passing in ways you can't follow. You ask her softly what happens if no one drinks. She tilts her head. Then thirst remembers, she says. That night you dream of the house flooded with silence. Teacups bobbing in still water. The paper walls turning to skin. And the fourth cup sinking slowly handle first into the floor. You wake up with jasmine in your throat. You do not know where you are, but you know tea will be served soon. Tonight the house feels less like a place and more like a pause between heartbeats. You enter as if through a memory. The floorboards sigh beneath you, not from weight, but from recognition. You are no longer a guest. You are no longer even new. The fourth cup is already half full. No one is in the room. The candle is unlit. But there's warmth on the tatami exactly where you always sit, as though someone rose just moments before you stepped in. You do not question it. Instead, you reach for the matchbox, though you don't remember ever being shown where it was kept, and light the candle. It smells faintly of plum blossoms, fainter still of burnt paper. You can almost make out a whisper from the wick. It sounds like someone telling you not to be late. There is a scroll on the far wall now. You swear it wasn't there yesterday. It reads, "She drank alone, and so she was never alone again." You read it 3 times before it fades. The ink does not dry, it disappears, like breath on a mirror. There's a clinking behind you. You turn. The tray is set. 3 cups. One is yours. One is full. The other is upside down, resting on a folded cloth as if mourning something you haven't yet noticed. You sit. The air is still, but your skin feels as if it's being remembered by the wind. A fact this one older than most in prehistoric Japan, long before recorded history. Some archaeologists believe that people placed offerings not just in graves, but in shallow pits beside streams near large stones or beneath trees that had been struck by lightning. These were considered in-between places, portals of sorts. Not sacred, not cursed, just watched. No writing remains from that time. But charred remains of tea-like herbs have been found. Placed with care. Burned deliberately. No one knows why. Some researchers argue it wasn't for the dead at all. It was to attract something older. You are beginning to suspect they may have been right. There is laughter outside. Not loud, not cruel. A child's voice fading upward like bubbles through water. Then silence. You do not stand. You've learned your role. This is your place. You pour, you wait. The old woman enters with a bowl of salted plums. She sets them gently beside the tray and mutters, "For the ones who left early." You ask, "Did she leave early?" The woman pauses. "No. She left exactly when she meant to, but she never told the tea." She sits with you. First time she's done that. Her knees crack like old wood. Her smile is gone tonight. "I tried to stop it," she says. But ghosts don't listen. They only remember. You look at her hands. One is trembling. They think if you drink for someone long enough, she continues, you become their memory, and then they don't need the memory anymore, just you. You ask what happens then. She glances at the fourth cup. It's full again. The flame flickers once. A shape appears in it. A silhouette maybe. A profile. Or a reflection of a face you haven't seen yet. You ask her who was Naoko. The woman exhales long and slow. She was my sister, or daughter, or maybe she was me. It depends when you ask. She drank the tea. No, the woman says, she poured it. You realize something's. The shrine has never held an image for more than a day. It changes, it forgets, or it pretends to. You glance at the photo resting there now. It's you. Not a photo exactly, more like a charcoal sketch. Your eyes are open, but you look like someone who hasn't blinked in days. You do not speak, because silence seems safer now than explanation. One of the old jokes returns to you. Why don't the dead leave notes because they still expect to be heard? Another. If a cup is full and no one drinks it, is it a trap or an invitation? Answer. Yes. The third joke you remember because it's not funny. What do you call someone who pours tea for the dead every night? Answer eventually theirs. You pour the tea again, for the fourth cup. The old woman watches. You're good at it, she says. You try to thank her, but your voice doesn't rise above the rim of your cup. She stands brushing the salt from her lap and leaves the room without a sound. The candle begins to lean again, but this time it leans away from you. The floor beneath the fourth cup darkens, not with shadow, with weight. Something is here now, but not behind you. Inside the cup. You reach forward. You stop. You do not touch it, because this is not your tea. Not yet. You've stopped counting the nights. The house has no clocks, no calendar. Only tea poured when it needs to be poured. Sometimes at dusk, sometimes at dawn, sometimes at that odd hour when the world feels paused like a held breath between rainstorms. Tonight you don't remember walking here. You don't remember unlocking any door or sliding it open. You simply are. You are seated. The tray is before you. The fourth cup is full. You no longer ask who it's for. The old woman doesn't come anymore. Or perhaps she never did. A new letter lies on the shrine, but this one is folded into an intricate shape like an insect or a mask or both. You do not open it. It pulses slightly as though it's breathing in time with your thoughts. You no longer check the mirror. It reflects nothing useful. Instead, you wait. And while you wait, something changes. Tonight, for the first time, the cup nearest you is full before you lift the teapot. You pause. You do not touch it. Instead, you look at the fourth cup. It's steaming gently. The chip has vanished. The porcelain is smooth. It looks new. Or perhaps it has always been new. You're the one wearing out. A real fact in some prehistoric burial sites, bodies were interred with cups held to their chests facing upward. One Japanese site showed a child laid to rest this way, arms folded as though preparing to pour in reverse. Some say it was symbolic, a reversal of offering. Others believe it was meant for the soul's return. Some researchers dismiss this interpretation. They argue the positioning was coincidental. The cups were merely practical, not spiritual. Ritual one-paper scoffs is often retroactively imagined, but when you sit across from a steaming cup that refills without help, ritual begins to feel like survival. You look down at your hands. They're cleaner than you remember, paler. The lines on your palm don't end where they used to. The candle doesn't flicker tonight. It burns straight like a spine learning how to stand. The air hums. You realize you haven't blinked. You also realize you haven't been breathing, but you don't panic. Instead, you turn slowly toward the space beside you. The one no one else ever occupies. The one the old woman used to glance toward when she smiled too long. And this time she is there. Not the old woman, Naoko. You know it's her, though she does not wear a name. Her face is calm, not kind, not cruel, just awake. She sits perfectly still, hands folded, eyes wide. She doesn't move. But the tea does. The fourth cup lifts, hovers, tips slightly, returns. She doesn't drink. You do. You feel it. The warmth, the bitter herb, the weight of memory. You want to speak, but your voice is still in the cup. You want to run, but your legs are folded beneath someone else's name. You want to wake up, but this is the only version of the world where you've ever truly been seen. Naoko smiles. Or maybe the shadow behind her does. Then softly, impossibly, her voice. Now it's your turn. She stands. You do not. The candle leans back towards you once more as if remembering its first flame. She walks to the shrine, lifts the paper insect, unfolds it with great care. It is blank, but she nods satisfied. Then she steps through the far wall. There is no door, just a hush, and the sound of water being poured from nowhere into something you can't see. The fourth cup stays, but it's no longer yours to pour. You look down. Your cup is chipped, a gentle crack at the rim. It looks familiar. It looks ready. You breathe at last. And the house exhales. A wind moves through the walls without sound. The matchbox is gone. The candles forget how to burn. The shrine closes its eyes. Outside, plum petals fall onto a pond that doesn't ripple. Inside, cups are arranged with perfect care, even though no one is coming. And yet steam rises, not from the tea, from memory, from ritual, from the part of the world that refuses to forget the sound of warmth being shared. You are not trapped. You are not gone. You are simply being remembered, over and over, one cup at a time.